Hello, bosses, and welcome to today's Power Lunch webinar with Meredith Walker, the co-creator of Amy Poehler's Smart Girls. Hi, everybody. I'm Emilie Aries, the founder and CEO of Bossed Up, tuning in here from Washington, D.C., and I am so pleased to have y'all joining us for one of our very final in the series of Power Lunches that we posted throughout the 2015 Fierce Fall Challenge. Thank you to everybody who's joining us. I see folks in from all over the country. We've got a lot of badass women who are joining us from Tallahassee to Philly to New York. Thank you, ladies, for tuning in. I hope you're sharing and for sharing this great Power Lunch with us. I wanted to first thank you for everyone who took part in this year's Fierce Fall Challenge. We're a week away from our deadline, Thanksgiving, which is the deadline for our 10-week challenge to tackle the biggest remaining goal that you have for this year before the holidays take us over. If you still want to get involved, you absolutely can and benefit from all the resources and inspiration, motivation, and research-based sort of goal attainment strategies that we've been sharing. Just head on over to bossedup.org/fiercefall. But without further ado, today's Power Lunch is here. We're here with Meredith Walker, and Meredith is, as I said, the co-creator of Amy Poehler's Smart Girls, the incredible online community of women and girls who want to create a positive space to connect and inspire one another online. I absolutely love their tagline, "Change the world by being yourself," and we're going to talk more about that. Prior to co-creating Smart Girls with Amy Poehler, Meredith was the head of talent development at Saturday Night Live. You may have heard of it, I believe, and was a producer with Nickelodeon's Nick News, among many other incredible things. So we are so excited to have Meredith here today, tuning in from Austin, the great Lone Star State, Texas. So Meredith, you want to click the little cam button and come on back in here. Thanks so much for being here.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for that great action.
Awesome. So really, as a lot of our bosses know, Power Lunch is all about creating an opportunity for dialogue and conversation around how incredible women like you, Meredith, have gotten to where you are today. Because a lot of us Bossed Up community members are interested in crafting that happy, healthy, and sustainable career path, which is easier said than done. So I guess the first big question I have for you is tell us a little bit about how you got to what you're doing today, and what were you up to in your 20s and 30s that set you up for this kind of creative career that you've really created for yourself?
Well, in probably like a lot of people in my early 20s, it was more like, I look back on it as saying I was 13, 14 years old. That's right. The maturity level and the insight, and forethought I had at that time. So we'll just kind of skip over the early 20s.
Sounds good.
But when I finally started getting it together, paying attention to myself and doing a lot of critical thinking, I realized that what I really loved was, I loved truth and facts and fact finding. And I loved storytelling that I knew I could rely on being factual. So that's what led me to be mentored by the great legendary Linda Ellerby. And she's the one who had a production company that made the show Nick News for Nickelodeon. And so it was there that I really got my faux master's degree in figuring things out and being able to help tell stories and be able to tell them truthfully so that, journalism you could rely on kind of thing. And I was never, this might be different than some of the people listening today, and if so, fine, and if not, fine. But I was somebody who kind of really thought, I always knew I was an ambitious person who wanted to do a lot with my time in my life and things like that. But I never had that kind of, sometimes that kind of sharp-edged part that can come along with that. Yeah. And so there was a lot of kind of figuring it out as I went along and making mistakes because I didn't play game very well.
Yeah.
And for me, that's okay. I didn't want to be able to play the game very well. I didn't know it at the time. I just felt like, what am I not doing right here? But what it did get me to is in my late 30s, and I was able to become even more authentic by doing Smart Girls with Amy. And And that is where I have to play the game well. I have to take care of girls well, do this part well. So that's, I think just by realizing I wasn't a game player and that wasn't going to be my jam, that's what's helped me get where I want to be.
Yeah, and I feel like that experience is quite universal. I know, and I want to also remind everybody that we have this chat bar here you should take advantage of on the left side of your screen. Feel free to weigh in with comments, share why you're here, ask questions away, and I'll make sure that we get to them towards the end of our discussion. But we like to keep this organic, but please weigh in, bosses. But what you were saying about sort of recognizing which game you want to play and which game you don't want to play, because I know that starting Smart Girls is not an easy feat, and it's, you know, I feel like it's easier to fight for something when you really believe like your heart is in it and that's the right fight for you. We were just speaking before we went live here. I got started in politics, which if you have to say that there's a game career, like politics is probably a big you know, on that short list of where there are the most politics in the office. So I loved the work I was doing to help pass health reform, to work on behalf of President Obama. But that game was not the right game for me. And what that meant is I led quickly to burn out before the age of 25. I just ran myself right into the ground. And I know that a lot of us sometimes feel like failures at that moment. I know that I didn't know what the hell was coming next for me. Did you ever have a moment in your life or in your career where you felt like, I don't know what's next, but this is not right for me? And I guess the question is, how did you get out of that, and what did you do with that?
Well, I think I've had it a couple of times, actually.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that that's important. It really is a ride. You're going to have ups and downs, and it's just making sure you take care of yourself to the best of your abilities, you know, during the dips.
Totally.
But I would say, you know, my timing is probably a little more loaded because working at Saturday Night Live while there was anthrax in the building and 9/11 and there was like a brownout not that long after that. Mixed, it really did. We were kind of all having an existential crisis. You know, what are we doing? But it was kind of, I reached that place of burnout because it's as wonderful as it is, and the camaraderie and the lovely things that come out of working on a good TV show.
Yeah.
You can't just like do your own laundry and just like cook for yourself and find that kind of time for those normal everyday riches of life. That's when things start to just kind of get too hard. And that's one of the things, as soon as I moved to Austin, I remember being like, I'm just going to the store and I'm going to cook. And, you know, life's simple pleasures really did get to come back and play in my life. And so that enabled me to have a more joyful leadership time the next time, which is here at Smart Girls.
That's very cool. It's like you get to, like, the core parts of being a human are not to be overlooked. It's funny how we can get so wrapped up in the celebrity status or the, you know, perception of success that we forget, like, being a human is pretty cool too. Right? Like,
it really is.
Yeah. I like to call that.
We all have.
Right. I like to call
the great
that
equalizer.
Exactly. You want to see the great equalizer, head over to the DMV is what I always say. That's nobody celebrity here. I like to call that whole philosophy sustainable success. So really setting yourself up to not just be happy and kick ass at work this month or this year or this week, which sometimes we can get into that mindset of martyrdom and sacrifice just to like do the best work, which I get. But to be able to sustain that kind of achievement or creative energy over the long term takes an investment in your personal sustainability, which is sort of what we're all about here at Bossed Up. And I wonder what is it that fuels you in that way? Like, how do you stay sane and you know, to sustain yourself over the long term in this role?
Well, I think that's a great question because it is hard, and you do get into this, like, especially when it's something like Smart Girls, when it's something that I created and built up and brought up, and it's, you know, the daughter Amy and I share.
Yeah.
it's hard. It's really hard to have boundaries around it, as many of the people on our staff will tell you. It's very hard for me to not be involved with every bit of it, and want to answer everybody's questions and go and talk to everybody who asks, and just really help engage with everybody. And so setting those boundaries is a tough thing, and it's a lesson I'm still learning. But I can tell you that aside from that kind of general thing that we're probably all working on all the time, the boundary thing, the thing that always helps, and this works for work, this works for heartache, this works for grief, and it works for happy times too, is to give of yourself, to volunteer, to find a way to be of service. That's the way to stay sane. Every time, that is the answer.
Yeah, that is absolutely true. And it's a funny balance, right? Because it's like making sure that you are on the level and even keel enough to actually give of yourself in a meaningful way. So it's sort of like investing in your personal sustainability as a way to give more of yourself at work and at home or in at life. I love that. That's great.
Yeah.
We have a question here specifically around the creative energy. So being a producer, a co-creator, someone who creates cool things, like tell us a little bit about the series that you're producing with Smart Girls right now. How do you keep the energy up? How do you keep the ideas flowing? How do you, stay inspired?
Well, that's easy. That really is. It's because, well, first of all, I just have I have a curious mind. So I really like finding out what's going on. And, if it's an injustice, of course, that fires you up and you get boiled up kind of way. But also if it's something good, I think, oh my gosh, this is such an inspiration. Let's share it. So just by continually researching and staying in touch with what's going on, that really does it. But then also the person who's the social media director for Smart Girls, she and we laugh because we send each other the same link all the time about in the moment we both send it. And so when you have somebody like that on your team, and we keep each other motivated, and we keep each other excited about what we want to share and create around it. And not to single out our social media director, who's great, but that's how our whole staff is too.
That's awesome.
Everybody, our development director, our editor-in-chief, everybody there is so excited about being able to share happy stories or things concerned that we can try and help change. And it wasn't as easy when it was just me by myself, but now it's such teamwork that it's easy to stay motivated and creative.
That is so awesome. And I want to ask you more about the work that you're doing right now, but you just reminded me that today is actually National Women's Entrepreneurship Day. So I wanted to ask, how did you get Smart Girls started? What did that process look like? And, just a shout out to women who are starting their own thing in any form or fashion right now. This is your day. Let's all celebrate it. I know.
Congratulations.
Right?
Entrepreneurs.
Exactly. Boss ladies everywhere.
Well, ours is an interesting one because it's actually, it started, as I've said before, it has started as a very pure and authentic thing because it was simply came of the conversations Amy and I were having around our own experiences through adolescence and realizing the things that actually did help. There's so many well-intentioned people out there who have these wonderful programs and all kinds of things to help through the age ranges that are particularly tough. Not that they all aren't, but but there are certain things that really do help. People listening is a big help. And so we decided, how can we set up a situation where we are the ones listening? And so that's how our web series started, Smart Girls at the Party. Amy had just gotten an update around that time anyway. And so we had this idea, but I work at a company that actually made digital media. And so I said to them, hey, my friend and I talk about this thing all the time. Maybe we should make a show out of it or something. And we did.
That's so awesome.
It was great, but then that company closed, and so we had to find another home base. And then that deal was it had an expiration date on it. So then we had to find another home base, and so keeping it alive in between deals, to funding and things like that. That's been really challenging, but and that's where the entrepreneurship comes in a lot. And that's but but as good advice to people out there, that's when we really focused on the community more than we ever had. We really doubled down and dug in and really engaged, and that's where our community became what it is today. So actually, as much as kind of in between times were a little funky, that's when we really were able to be the true heart and soul of this project and gather people around us like-minded.
That's so cool. So tell us a little bit more about the initiatives that you're working on now. I know you're just telling me about this awesome series around heavy petting. Can you tell us more about that?
Well, that could be misleading. It's not about heavy petting.
I might have added a little too much to that.
It's a show, and it so matches Smart Girls. I just love it so much. And it's we've asked our comedian friends to voice dogs that are shelter dogs who are looking to be adopted. And we really believe in adoption of loved ones, and we really love the idea of making, just helping to make these new family members even more attractive. So it's a show that's almost like a dating show where the celebrity voices are kind of like, hey, I really like playing with balls. Sometimes I eat too much. Sometimes I don't, but I'm really snuggly, just to kind of put a little personality to these dogs and help get them adopted. So that's a show we're so proud of. Really happy about that.
I love it. And this is very timely considering sort of the news of the week, but you were just telling me about some of the work that you're going to be hopefully doing to help refugee girls. Can you tell us anything more about that? I know it's probably not, it's early stage, but I think that's such an important part of the conversation. I'm so glad to hear Smart Girls is at the forefront.
Oh yeah. Well, and something that Amy has always said from the beginning, I mean, and I agree with her, but yeah, she's always been very much, she's always really tried to have it so we have content that really shows we're all so much more alike than we are different. And most of the times the ways that we're different are actually pretty interesting. If it's like culturally and or whatever. But we all look the same on the inside. It's like that meme that's going around right now, Bill Nye. It's like everything on the inside is exactly the same, so get over it. And so we really like to show that, like, just because this person lives in a place that looks different, they still get their feelings hurt. They still feel left out. They still feel total victory when they kick the goal. They feel great, So we love doing that. And one of the things that we do a lot here in Austin is help with immigrant women and girls who are, I think the place that we work with the most, and I can't talk too much about it, but the place we work with the most, it's people who have left because they're in danger. They're in danger. And just like the Syrians now. And so, people there's a lot of rhetoric, and a lot of politics, as I'm sure you remember from your days, when people, they kind of make a game out of it to try and get more people on their side and forget that these are human beings who are having a really terrible time. And so if you really want to show what your values are about, well, then you need to show up for these people who are suffering. And so that's what we do in different ways. And so I'll be going to visit several Syrian refugees soon and talk to them and help them. And but that's something we really do believe. But Smart Girls are global. It's a global thing. We're all very much alike.
I love that. I think that's amazing. And it sort of speaks to your focus on authenticity, which to me is so profound, especially in the form of storytelling. Authenticity is obvious, I feel like, when you're seeing someone tell their story or elevate the stories of others, like the work that you do. And I wonder, sort of thinking back to the framework of Bossed Up, where we really help women level up in what can sometimes feel like a very inhumane workplace that some of us feel stuck in today's economy, where I like to say that there is no magic line between your office and your life. You don't forget who you are, or that you had a bad day. You walk in the door at your office. So what does that look like? How have you, or what is your, I guess, advice or thoughts on being authentic to who you are within the confines of a larger organization or brand or establishment? Because I know that can be a real struggle for some of our bosses at Bossed Up.
Well, I have a prescription for that.
Oh yeah.
And it's something that it's something we talk about a lot at Smart Girls, and it's my thing, and it's called Get Your Hair Wet.
Yes.
And that started out as we noticed a lot of women at the swimming holes are watching their body have all the, and they're so either worried about their makeup or their hair, or they're just worried or something, and they never just get in and splash around and have fun too. But then it took on it's taken on a much greater meaning, and it's a hashtag, so it's totally legit.
Okay.
And
All right.
it means you have to find those things in your life that are not pushing you towards a goal. You have to do some things just to do them, because they're just kind of fun and goofy in that moment. So that's why we say get your hair wet. Like, get all the way in there, jump in, shut up, have some fun, say yes to that thing. It might be a little risky. You might look kind of good dorky, do it.
Right.
And we really believe that that's how you build up an interesting self. And an interesting self is an authentic self. And I mean, I don't mean interesting so that you're more attractive to other people. I mean interesting because you find yourself interesting. You know, that's, you find yourself interesting all the way through this life, that's the accomplishment.
Yeah. And I think what's funny is that the minute you start actually crushing on yourself in that way, and the minute you start admiring yourself more and being your own biggest fan and actually creating a life that you admire and are inspired by, the world responds. Like, the world sees that. I know that at the start of my career, I was busy trying to make sure that everyone thought I was legit, and, tried to conform and unite and make myself sort of blend so that I would fit in and no one would think that I was an imposter. Because in my head, I really felt like an imposter because I was a young person with a big leadership role. And the minute I threw that whole practice out the window, and in my case, I didn't get my hair wet. I actually cut off most of my hair.
That's your version. That works.
My version. But once I did the hashtag Get Your Hair Wet essential reboot to my life, the world responds. Like, people perk up, they notice, and those who aren't a fan don't need to be. Like, you might lose some people along the way, but that is okay. Like, that is what's supposed to happen.
It is, and I think that's a great. I see some of the messages, and it's a great antidote to imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Because if you jumped off that thing, or you zip lined, or you just tried that new thing when you get nervous going into something alone, and you go ahead and do it. That is when you take in this stuff. We can read a lot, and we can do all of these things, and that's so good for us. But feeling it is so strong, and so that's why we say do it.
I love that, and it sort of reminds me of the intersections between work, love, and wellness. For us, that's a really big theme. And I remember that when I felt physically weak, I felt emotionally weak. Right before I started Bossed Up, I ran my first half marathon. Not to say that anyone needs to run a half marathon, because it's my first and only that I've ever done, but just going week to week and being like, whoa, I did something this weekend that I've never done before and never would have imagined possible. Taking a big goal and breaking it down into more manageable steps, and then doing it with other people. I mean, that gave me confidence that trickled over into every other part of my life. So I think having fun is really good for your brain. Just like you were saying, it's a great antidote to imposter syndrome. So cool. I just want to pause here and remind you to weigh in with your questions and comments for Meredith. I want to ask you also, what is it like teaming up with the incredible people that you work with? What do you feel like your strengths are that you've really honed in on? And how is it sort of hanging with people like Amy Poehler and creating something awesome with folks from that sort of world that y'all are in?
Well, it's always very fulfilling, and it mainly because, at the end of the day, because of something we're doing, a dog is going to get adopted,
right?
Or a girl is going to sign a glass license. Just knowing that maybe the way we word something or the way we present something is just what somebody needs to hear to actually do it. That's very rewarding. And the thing that about, we just recently had a big team night out in LA, and it was just sitting at a table of really interesting, smart thoughtful, considerate, soulful women,
Mm.
all of us caring about other human beings and just trying to do something about that with our time here. I couldn't have asked for a better team or a better reason to go to work.
That's awesome. And it actually sort of brings us right to this question that just came in from Elizabeth in LA, who asked, what do you hope for Smart Girls in the future? What is your ultimate aim or goal, or where do you, how do you expand or plan to expand the party, or what do you want the party to look like?
We already know, and we're so excited about it. We really are moving towards the idea of many more bigger scale live events, and we've had day camps, and they're fantastic, and we've really loved it. From that, we know how much, and so we're going to do sleepaway camps and like real camps, and so we want to move kind of like, we love the screen and we're going to stay there forever, but we also want to be in the real world, because like I was saying about Get Your Poet, like that's where, when you really feel those things in real life because you're doing them, that's where you really get them. So that's the thing, we're kind of split screen between the screen and the real world.
I love seeing that happen because, and so you're targeting adolescent women for these camps, is that right? Or
yes, it would be girls and through high school probably, just because we know so much more now about the biology of the brain and like where you are in certain stages of life. So
yeah, that's so cool.
Through high school.
I love when organizations really do take like online success to offline success or reality.
Yeah.
So cool. Because Bossed Up Boot Camp, or Bossed Up started with a boot camp in person, and it's really, it's the spine of what we do. It's still the most popular way to, basically have that moment that you were talking about of getting your stuff together. It's sort of like a weekend long boot camp, right? To get your life together, and career-wise, if people are making a pivot, it's sort of the perfect thing for them. So we're constantly holding Bossed Up boot camps. We have one coming up next month, actually. And I would love the idea of a Smart Girls at the sleepover party.
Yeah.
Awesome. So we have a couple of questions here. Let's see. I want to ask this great question that came in from Francis in New York. And it reminds me of the fact that there was a recent study, I think in September or maybe late August, and if I recall, it was from Stanford or NYU, that said this whole myth of cattiness in the office, of women not helping other women, was totally a media perpetuated myth. And the research really shows that we are living in an era of women helping women. And I know that's sometimes hard to believe if you've ever, if we have this ingrained patriarchy, quite frankly, that makes us think that all women are out to get each other. But what is your take on that? And how do you sort of live true to the women helping women philosophy in your life, in your daily life, and how can all of us?
Well, I've never experienced women, whatever that is. I've experienced people being jerks.
Right.
And it had nothing to do with their gender. It had more to do with their egos. And that's what I find most of the time anyways. The people who kind of step on your face as they're climbing the ladder of success.
Yeah.
Or, will sell, if they'll finding scapegoats and things like that. I think that's just a character issue. And, and when you're working with people of good character, and if you're in an industry or a job, where you can show your good character and that's an actual strength, then you're for me, I'm in the right place. Now, if you can handle it and it doesn't bother you, that's a different Bossed Up probably. Because I'm big on this. I'm big on the when people say it's just business. I know that there's a time and a place for that to be an appropriate thing to say, but I still roll my eyes at it because whatever your idea of why we're all here on this earth, I'm pretty confident that I can say with certainty it wasn't about business.
Right.
And for whatever explosion happened a million years ago. It's a million.
Right.
We're humans and we live here together and we're supposed to have a nice time until our time is up, So this whole it's just business and I'm going to destroy you. That's not okay.
Right.
Not okay. and not how we do things at Smart Girls.
Great. And it reminds me of how women leaders in particular have been shown to be, and this is not at all exclusive to women, but have been shown to bring a more empathetic approach to leadership and business that I think a lot of people respond strongly to. And I think it was this guy on one of the investors in Shark Tank just yesterday gave a quote, or the day before, about how, you know, all of his companies that he's invested in that were headed off by women are doing tremendously well. And he attributes it to sort of the entrepreneurship method of being really empathetic and knowing your client and knowing how to make them happy, which is that's what business looks like nowadays, as far as I'm concerned. But I know it doesn't always feel that way.
I know.
Yeah, I hear you. And then again, I also teach women how to be assertive and be hard about our boundaries and not to,
Well, and that's important.
Right.
Not giving yourself away.
True.
That's really important. And that goes back to authenticity.
Yeah. And actually, this brings us to a question related to Stephanie here from Tallahassee, who's asking about, so she's got creative ambition. She wants to get into a career where she can have her passion be her provider of her paycheck, right? And so here she's talking specifically about new media, social media, and she admires Smart Girls for filling a void and creating a platform. Snaps to that, because that's +1 to that. Ooh. How do you break into that kind of a world? I know that your path, is not for everybody, but what advice do you have for young folks or folks in their 20s, 30s who are trying to transition into that world?
I think it's actually a little bit harder. I mean, no, I was going to say, I think it's actually a little bit easier now, because if you have an authentic voice and you're not a mean person and you make good and your work is good, it'll get seen and shared and you can actually have a voice. And I think that's why there are a lot of bloggers who do so well. And so I would say, I know that some people, there have been some great people who have come through Smart Girls because they've been contributors there at different times. And so, offering yourself up at places, at online destinations that you like, being part of that community, that's definitely a strength builder for what you want to do. And you can see what works and what doesn't work too. That's a good way to do that. But I say, here's something that I actually go around and I talk about to a lot of students, and that is, just because it's easy and all this stuff is accessible to us doesn't mean that you can't take care. You still need to you still need to deliver responsible media on your blog or your Vimeo channel or wherever it is. Don't just throw something up there. Be responsible. Put the time and effort into making sure it's really good, and that the things that are being talked about are factual, if that's what your content is like. And then you just can't go wrong. It'll get noticed. It'll get passed around. Send it to us.
Yeah, I love that. And it just reminds me that your advice is to start creating, right? Start creating and see what happens and experiment and expect some things to not go so well. But that's part of learning, right? Get ready. Get ready for a little bit of failure, because that's how we get feedback. And better to
teacher.
Stumble your way up, right, to a full-time job doing that work than to get that great job and then stumble once you're there. Although I'm a professional mistake maker too. I think it's part of being.
Yeah, you're gonna make mistakes your whole life. It's how you react to them is all that changes.
Bingo. I love it. So we know that we can contribute. We should talk to Smart Girls about becoming a contributor. Stephanie, definitely get in touch there. But I love this question from Elizabeth from LA, who says, I love Smart Girls. How can we get involved? If we're over the high school age, is there any way we can volunteer or give our time? I'm always trying to find ways for Bossed Up to give back too, because our community members are just chomping at the bit to do some meaningful service. So we're always trying to figure that out. But what thoughts do you have for how they can help Smart Girls?
Oh, I've got so many thoughts. Thank you, Elizabeth, for your question. And thank you for wanting to get involved. I think people who want to get involved and do things are the people I like to be around. So, Hi. But I would say we're actually in the process right now of building out a way to do that. But until then, and I can't tell you a link right now to do that, until that's done, what we like to tell people is on our website, our downloadables, you can download a toolkit on how to help in particular situation. It's like just you'll see like there's a shelter dog. There are all kinds of like how to get active about certain things, and we also we have a lot of online campaigns that we do. We'll have one around Thanksgiving Day, and then you tell us about it. And that's what we say. We're like, go do these things and tell us about it, because we want to know what's it like for you. We want other people to know what it was like, and that in itself helps that word. It helps show how easy it is to go out and do stuff in this life, and participate and not just be, a troll. I mean, I comment too. Sometimes I probably shouldn't, but it's better out doing things no matter what. But anyway, so we have a lot of things on the website that'll help you. And then, but all we ask is like, come back to Instagram or Twitter or our Facebook page and let us know how it went and show us pictures and put them up.
I love it. It's almost like creating a community for either collective action or shared experience, right? So you're inspiring people to go offline, in reality, and go make some stuff happen, and then come back and we can celebrate it together. I love that. I think it's really inspiring.
Yeah, the last time we did it was really fun. We had a Labor Day kind of photo scavenger hunt, but the photos weren't. Some of them were just take a picture of something, but some were show yourself doing this thing.
Oh my God!
We were all. It was a cyber headquarters, but we were all out doing the same kind of cool stuff. It was really fun.
That is really cool. Well, I've got I have to give a little quick shout out to one of your biggest fans, my baby sister, who happens to be 11 years younger than I am. And in your main demographic, my little sister Izzy has been blowing up my cell phone this entire time to say hi to you, Meredith. So you're doing a lot.
What's her name?
Her name is Isabel. Yeah.
Hi, Isabel.
She's going to love that, Meredith. So it's too funny. She's a smart girl at the party for sure. And my right hand woman.
How could she not be with you as an older sister? Come on.
Thank you. I like to say she has shaped me just as much as anything else. So yay for smart girls of every generation. But you guys are definitely doing something right to get this Tumblr addict, freaking out in all caps on my texting right now.
Oh my gosh, that's so wonderful to hear.
It is so wonderful. Well, thank you so much. Are there any last words of wisdom? Anything else that we should absolutely know of how we can help be smart girls, how we can be bosses, how we can live an authentic truth that is ourselves? Because I love everything you've had to share with us so far, but is there one other thing you want us to take away that you think is important?
Well, I'll just remind you to get your hair wet.
Get your hair
Do
wet.
it. Whatever version it looks like. It could be, it looks a lot of different ways, and take a picture and show it to us on our social media.
Yeah.
And a great way to get started in that is something that Amy has always been a very big proponent of, and that is a spontaneous dance party. Yeah. And you can do it by yourself so that you don't even think about how you look, but the point is don't even look in the mirror, feel how it feels to goofy dancing for an entire song.
I love it.
And then you're off to a great start of authenticity.
That is such great advice, because Bossed Up takes our music very seriously. Because I think tunes are a part of living a sustainable life. So every week for the last 10 weeks, we put out a motivation mix in our Spotify, sort of following on our Spotify land account. So every week for the Fierce Fall Challenge, they've had a new Spotify mix, and some of them you just can't help but dance to. So I love.
I'm going to download those. I'm going to go to Spotify right after this.
Yeah, check us out. Bossed_up, I believe, is our username. And they're all in there, and they're all popping and super fun. So thank you so much, Meredith, for tuning in with us today, for sharing your...
Thanks, everybody, for being here. That's really fun.
Yay. Well, great. Thank you so much. We'll have lots more coming out in our follow-up blog post coming out later today. And everyone's tuning in, saying thank you so much, Meredith, for your time, and here's to lots more smart girls at the party.
Yay!
Woo!
Everybody do something fun.
Thank you so much. Bye, everybody.